Live from Run Your Mouth World Headquarters.
First up, how Biden is spending his time since they put him out to pasture. And how they're luring him back to the White House with tiny desks. Next, Doug Emhoff secure in his sexuality, saying that while Kamala might be running for president, he's actually pimping this bitch out. Next, after the DNC, Donald Trump makes a bold statement reminding the world that the RNC has retarded-looking boys too. And lastly, why the Russian mob is recalling its beluga whales. I hear that you've been snitching. That's not what I heard. Well, you'll have to tell your story to the other fishes.
It's your daily dose of misinformation, pulled from a lightly hemorrhoided asshole. It's today's Run Your Mouth!
People try and tell you what you gotta do. Don't you listen to them unless you think it's true. Follow your heart and your dreams. Follow your heart and your dreams.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Run Your Mouth podcast with our intro song from Fast Heart Mart. What's up, everybody? It's nice to be with you. Late in the evening, 10:47. I have to be up in about 4 hours to go to Newark Airport to be off in Casper, Wyoming, where I'm looking forward to opening up for Dave Smith this past week in Dallas. Was one of the best just pure comedy weekends. Those shows were fantastic. Packed houses. Ton of fans came out. I feel like it was all fans. I was working on all new election material. I was feeling so good. I was like, you know what? Let's film this thing before the election. And so I've got a whole buttload of new Porch Tour dates. You can go to www.porchtour.com. And I'm going to be filming in Denver, which, for all you cokeheads out there who like to do blow and then have like big elaborate plans on things that you're never going to do, I have a way that you can change your life. And I'm not a big blow guy, but I do like taking the Adderalls. And let me tell you, Porch Tour logistics is not my thing. For as fast as I talk and as speedy as I am and as coherent as I can be, if you guys could see the errors I make when I'm trying to put together logistics of booked flights and finding out that they were in the wrong cities, flights on the wrong day, thinking that you could afford to take to add a city and then realizing that you were looking at flights for next year and so they were cheap if you were booking a year in advance. There's a lot of logistics that goes into the Porch Tour, and it can be not done without Adderall, which, lucky for me, some kind fan out in Omaha, Nebraska hooked it up. Let me tell you, Porch Tour would not have happened if it was not for the illicit Adderall pills that guy handed to me. Anyways, So I made an Adderall decision of let's film this special, and I called my friend Gus, incredible film fellow, and he wasn't on Adderall. And then the next morning I was like, shit, now I got to film this thing. So what you got to do is you need sober friends that you can call, so then you're pot committed to the things that you thought were a good idea while you were on Adderall. And I was feeling really good because all the new election stuff worked really well in Dallas. So everybody, there are new Porch Tour dates up at porchtour.com. I think I've had enough Adderall having to schedule thing days. So I think that's going to wrap up this year's porches. But I think I might add one. I got two more porches that I'm eyeing, and one of them is in New Orleans, which is mostly just because I'd really like to have an excuse to spend an evening in New Orleans. Why am I talking into a burnt corn dog? It's just really the best way to broadcast. If you want to feel the energy of the universe, you need burnt corn dogs. It's the only way to do it. Another thing, if you're out in Casper, Wyoming, I've been complaining about injuries, which we're going to take care of. I found out about some peptides that they'll sell you over the internet that aren't quite tested by the FDA, but my whole life's things that are not tested by the FDA. Are my illegal Adderalls? Is kratom.com? I don't want to wrap them up into this. BP something or another. Anyways, I'm going to be healthy. They come this time next year, I'm going to be taking steroids. I'm going to be taking peptides. I'm going to be shredded to the wazoo. Instead of doing my sandbag squats, I'm going to get a full squat rack up in my morning because that's what I like to do. I'm not good at standing still. I got news to read. And if you're going to read the news, I like to work in the lifts. It's anyways. But in the meantime, we're taking it easy. And so sometimes you go out to the most beautiful areas of the entire country and you spend the entire 2 days that you're there inside of a strip mall. And then until someone picks you up to go to the show and you do the show and then you return to some strip mall. So if you're out there and you've got a car and you'd like to take me to the sights and scenes of Casper, Wyoming, so that we could go on a nice romantic walk and just look at things like this at a nice even pace, a slow, old man, Jewy back friendly pace, just a nice meander, like the Asian tourists just slowly walking by, taking a couple pictures, So if you're out there in Casper, Wyoming, I'm not looking for drugs. I'm not looking for your vagina. I've got a simple request, which is a person in a car who just wants to go for a nice stroll by a waterfall and go, wow, I got to see the sights and scenes of Casper, Wyoming at a nice meandering pace. Do you feel like this is a good pace? I feel like this is a good walking pace. This is a nice strut. I'm not looking to do anything more than this right now. That's about all I got in me. So if you also have the hips of a 75-year-old man and a Jew back and a stomach that probably bothers you because you decided to eat cake late at night because you were bored, then why not pick me up from the hotel? We can go on a nice walk in the fields of Casper, Wyoming. All right. Anyways, I do have some show to get into. So let's get into some show. And to start out, the first topic is something that I think should be at the forefront of this election cycle, which is they've got the Olympics and nobody watches the Olympics. And for some reason, as part of the contract for doing the Olympics, they have to add non-Olympics after the Olympics to make the cripples feel good. And I just want to put forward that do we really need to encourage these people who are already in wheelchairs to further injure themselves? Are we doing these people a favor? Why are we going to applaud and put them on television as they risk further injury? You're already in a wheelchair. All you've got left is your neck and arms. Do you really want to break that as well? Take it from a Jewish man who did his best to not look Jewish and then his body broke down. Don't do this to yourself. Someone needs to stand up and talk out against the cripples that we're putting on television to clash into each other, not even for our amusement because nobody's watching. Am I the only person that will stand up and talk out against this mental illness? Next up, we've got, oh yeah, I already announced, further Porch Store dates. If we wouldn't have to replug the Porch Store dates. They're right there. Check them out. More dates coming at you. This is such an odd turn of events. So you've got RFK. He leaves the race because he goes, I might be a spoiler. I said I was in this to win it, and if I can't win it, I'm pulling myself out. And I hope at some point they actually make a documentary about the court cases that this guy faced, how much time he was actually spending in court, because that's his claim now, is that I couldn't even campaign. They saddled me with all these lawsuits. I couldn't even get on the ballot, and so I finally realized, you know what? I think I'm just pulling votes from Donald Trump. And he went to both parties. He goes, hey, who wants to buy me? Who wants this endorsement? Who's going to take me on to your sights and scenes? I need out of this mess. You guys win. I can't handle these court cases. My God, I managed to beat Monsanto. I've had a whole career. I'm a wealthy lawyer. If anyone should have been able to handle the lawsuits, it's me. But even he was like, this is too, I can't do this. I can't. This is how I'm going to spend. I can't be doing this. And so he said, you know what? Who wants to buy this vote? All right, it's Donald Trump. You want to buy my endorsement? You can have it. And then he gets out there. He goes, all right, I don't want to spoil this election for Donald Trump. We got to turn our backs on these Democrats. I used to be a part of that party, but what these people are doing, ruining our food supply, forcing vaccines upon us, platforming Fauci, I can't have any part of this. And in an odd turn of events, they won't remove him from the ballot in some of the swing states. This is like the producers, where he now has to go campaign. Please don't vote for me. Please, whatever. I know you might see me on the election, but please don't vote for me. I'm not actually running. He's gonna have to be out there reminding people, don't, not my name. It might appear there, but I'm actually running. Don't vote for me. Please don't vote for me. I know I spent so much effort to get you to vote for me, but please don't vote for me. I mean, is this not, it's, someone tweeted at me, it's like Brewster's Millions. It's the most backwards thing ever, where now, I guess, I mean, they could force him to be president now? What happens if someone who isn't running gets ridden in by everyone in the country? I guess you, go to the two parties and you go, all right, who wants to buy me out? Who wants to put me on the board of Boeing, and one of you can be president instead of me? I got no interest in this. Who wants to actually run? Or you can just do what Biden does. I guess that you can be like, hey, can I just have the ice cream and you can put me out at the beach every once in a while? Oh, which brings me to my next topic. I don't even know. Oh, this is next. That actually flows well. All right. Every time I see Joe Biden, do you not have a moment and go, wait, he's still alive? Isn't there like, I almost feel like I'm living like that Berenstein Bear thing or the Fruit of the Looms thing, where for some reason I'm like, wait, he's still alive? I thought they ran out of clones. They're still putting him out there? I thought he was done for. This was a fun moment where he goes, they won't let me go anywhere. Yeah, they said it's too dangerous. So apparently they're trying to keep him under wraps. They're putting him up at a little tiny desk at the Oval Office. I guess they already cleared out the Oval Office. Whoever is actually running the country, they were like, you know what? You can have the nice desk. You can be in the Oval Office room. Which, by the way, have you ever seen like the broader pictures of the Oval Office and you realize it's just a television studio? The entire roof is just lights. You realize it's literally just a film set. But anyone else feel that way when they roll him out? You're like, wait, oh my God, he's still alive? They're still pretending like he's doing this thing? All right, let's take a couple comments and then we can get into the next thing. Damn, he always got two chats going. I don't know what that means. JJ, BPC 157. You know what I'm talking about. We're going to peptide up to the wazoo, my friends. I'm going to get fucking shredded next year. That's the goal. Adderall is like a god-tier recreational drug. It's really not. It's not fun. It's not a fun drug, but you can sit here really angry and look at your calendar and actually respond to emails and get done work that you would never otherwise do. Cousin Fat, Adderall ruins lives and will ultimately be looked back at as worse than opioid epidemic. 1 out of 5 kids under 18 are prescribed. I agree. Do not put your kids on Adderall. I can't imagine what would have happened to me if they put me on it as a kid. It's just like, as an adult, I can choose when I do and don't want to take it, and I can actually just wing it on dosages, and I can mix up Adderall to Focalin to Concerta to whatever some random fan hands me after a show, and I can take it in smaller dosage. I can pick the particular days when I have to do the work that it makes sense for. Those are all things that you can do as an adult. But as a child, if they're just you're being drugged. And I know, like, it makes me angry. Like, after 2 days on Adderall, like, I'm not a pleasant person. I don't like it. I smell bad. My dick shrivels up. It's not a good time. I mean, sometimes if you take it late at night and you're drinking, like, you can have fun with it. I'm just saying, it's like a once a week, fry out your adrenaline gland, get what you got to get done. Like, if instead of doing every day of school, you just wanted to drug your kid and do the entire curriculum for the week in one day, like, then I like finals. You know what I mean? You don't do school the whole year, and then you show up for 1 week, you don't sleep, you do a bunch of Adderall, you bang it all out, you pass a couple of the classes, maybe you got to retake a few of them. That's the way no one should be on Adderall on a daily basis. And this is, I shouldn't be giving out medical advice, particularly not on YouTube. If your doctor wants to slap your kid on pharmaceuticals, get after it. Except don't. They're little kids. They don't want to sit in school. No one wants. Why do we sit? I'm standing right now. Standing is great. Standing is the way of the future. Can you believe that the entire system of school is based on that you have to sit down? And then you discover I never have to sit down. I never sit down. I do all of my work at a standing desk all of the time. I'm always moving around as an adult. If they could have had school where we could have just roamed around like goldfish in the class, but no, you got to sit in the desk. It's not even good for you. It's not even good for your health. And then you discover as an adult, you can do squats until you tear your pec muscles. That you can do that as an adult. But they don't let you do that in school. The entire system, they make you memorize facts you're never going to use, and the entire basis of the thing is that you got to sit in a desk, which isn't even good for your health. You want to fix the school system. Instead of drugging the kids, put them on treadmills so they can do what I do. They can just be out on a walk. They can put up something in their background, pretend like they're out in the woods by a nice waterfall. That's how you fix school. But I agree with what that person said. Recreationally as an adult, you want to take the random Adderalls that fans give you after a show. That just is common sense. But for your kids, I agree. Not a good idea. Art Lufa. Nice time to visit New Orleans. We're on strike at work, so I'm free to attend. Excellent. I mean, you should be leaving work to come to a show anyways. All right, let's take 2 more comments, and let's get back into it. Looks like Biden had Botox treatment. Or it's just a new person in a new face. Trade out the cap for a beanie, and Putin might call Adderall ain't cheap. There you go. I like that. All right, next up, what do we got? Kremlin is trying to sway the election. Look at the transitions tonight. We are grooving, everybody. This is the new thing. Hey, the Kremlin is involved in our election. Ukraine. We can't be out here in our country saying that we can't be supporting this Ukraine war, which won't go anywhere, might escalate to nuclear war and just get more Ukrainians killed. If you're over here watching what's going on over in Russia and you're trying to say, hey, this thing's kind of a mistake. We could be getting along with these Russian people. We don't have to be doing fake wars with them, spending all this money that we don't have, propping up Ukraine so that they can keep their soldiers in it and have more people die for absolutely no reason, for at some point to just give what Russia took over and be like, hey, next time can you guys respect the border, and then, maybe we actually won't put missiles over there. The whole thing's been a blunder since day one. It's been stupid since China and India were like, yeah, we'll still buy your oil. If the other people don't want your natural gas, we like natural gas. Send your natural gas our way. And like we've already explained, the whole thing's war theater because Ukraine is still pumping natural gas through their country for them, and they can't they need a fight in a war, but somehow they can both get along enough for oil profits. Anyways, we can't be criticizing that. And so now you've got the apparently some of these conservative people were taking cash. I don't know exactly what that arrangement was. We just did a paywalled episode, partoftheproblem.com. We did a whole episode on this. Firstly, I don't think that those people knew what it, like, I work in this space. You can get it makes sense for people to pay for custom content and to pay probably, I don't know all the specifics. I gotta look into the specifics on that, but it seems like people that were otherwise against the war were paid for customized content for it. And this seems like it's a good opportunity to show up, and for the election, as we get into the election cycle, Russian disinformation. Oh, if you hear anything bad about Hunter Biden, we better take that down from the internet. That's just Russian disinformation. And of course, they don't tell us the size and scope of this. It's a little bit like if I got up there and I said, hey, there's election fraud. I mean, that's objectively true. I'm sure in every single election, there are some false ballots that are casted. What's the size and scope of it? Is it so large that it's actually swaying our election? Is Russia the only country that is trying to mingle and meddle here? I mean, it's in Russians' best interest to try and convince us that the Ukraine war is a mistake. Maybe that's actually the most peaceful way to de-escalate it, is to actually invest in Americans being educated to what's happening over there, that we're like, hey, we don't like this. Why don't we not support this? Why don't we not do it? I mean, that all just, in this case, I guess I'm on board with the Russian misinformation. The Russian misinformation might be the thing that saves our country from escalating this to World War III and having more Ukrainians die for absolutely no reason. But we're going to hear it from Merrick Garland as if not a single other country. Israel isn't doing anything on TikTok. They weren't buying YouTube ads. Every single country, I'm sure, has some involvement. How much money is Russia spending versus everyone else? And what exactly is the misinformation that they're trying to pour in front of us? Is it just that they'd rather not have a war with us? Because that doesn't seem to me like it's the worst information online. And how do you put that up against what the deep state did in terms of removing the Russian laptop story, or how the pharmaceutical companies influenced everyone's decision-making process when they removed all the anti-vaccine talk from YouTube, the algorithms, social media, got rid of the lab leak theory? or all of the money that's spent by pharmaceutical companies propping up CNN or the other networks. But no, we're just going to look at the Russian misinformation. We're not going to tell you the size and scope of it, and everyone's supposed to panic. Oh no, the Russians are influencing our election. Hey, if Donald Trump gets elected, was it even legitimate with the Russian misinformation? I mean, let's not question the last election and what happened with the laptop story because of our deep state when they claimed that had all the hallmarks of the Russian misinformation. But we need everybody on board and panicked and, questioning our election season and questioning if you're hearing anything that's against this war, well, that's just probably Russian misinformation. And even if it's accurate and it might change your opinion and get us away from World War III, we need everyone to know that this is Russian misinformation. And so on that note, let's listen to Merrick Garland.
Today, the Justice Department unsealed charges against Yahya Sinwar and other senior leaders of Hamas for financing and directing a decades-long campaign to murder American citizens and endanger the security of the United States.
I downloaded the wrong clip, but this one's hilarious too. It's like, hey guys, we're, that terrorist guy that we have an entire war that we're funding and we're bombing civilians to get? Well, I'm here to make an official announcement that he's not a nice guy and we're going to get him in trouble. Like he wasn't already in trouble. Hey guys, I'm here with a formal announcement that we don't like the guy who's a terrorist, who organized a terrorist attack. And we're currently funding an operation to go get and killing a lot of civilians trying to get. Thanks for this important announcement, Merrick Garland.
As outlined in our complaint, those defendants, armed with weapons, political support, and funding from the government of Iran and support from Hezbollah, have led Hamas's efforts to destroy the state of Israel. And
hey, if you weren't sure where the American government stood on Hamas terrorists, Merrick Garland's here just to clear up any misconceptions. A year into this war, if there were any misconceptions about how the American government feels about Hamas terrorists that carry out assaults on civilians, Merrick Garland's here to clear it up.
And murder civilians in support of that aim. In its attacks over the past 3 decades, Hamas has murdered or injured thousands of civilians, including dozens of American citizens.
Are the Hamas bad people? I wasn't even aware of that. All right, earlier this week, Kamala Harris sat down with Tim Walz, did a full 20-minute interview on the most favorable network with the most favorable host. And once again, I guess I'm plugging part of the problem because we did a whole episode on that. There were 2 great moments in this interview that we did not talk about on the Part of the Problem show. And one of them happens to be what is actually one of my favorite jokes. It's actually a joke that I stole the structure from a friend of mine, and I use quite a bit, which is I have a friend, and a loose friend. Grew up with the kid, not that in touch with him, bit of a maniac. And my friend, one day, he decided that he was going to bike to Washington, D.C. from Stamford, Connecticut. Just on a whim. He just thought, you know what? It'd be fun to bike from Stamford, Connecticut to Washington, D.C. And so he looks at the map and he realizes that's a very long bike ride. It's going to take him a very long time. And what's the most direct route to get from Stamford, Connecticut to Washington, D.C.? And he realizes, he's a smart kid, it's on I-95. He realizes that if you're going to be biking in the evening hours from Stamford, Connecticut to Washington, D.C., and you want to take a well-lit route that is available to you in the evening hours and is the most direct route for such a long bike ride, I-95 is the way to go. And so my friend bikes I-95. He gets all the way to New Jersey biking on I-95. And at some point, a cop is driving on the highway and he sees a person just biking in the road and pulls him over. My friend gets pulled over biking on I-95. The cop pulls him over. And, they like to, when they pull you over, they like to fix that hat as they get out of their car, get into character, and yell at you. That's what they like to do. And so the cop starts yelling at him. He goes, "What the hell are you doing? You're biking in the middle of the highway." And my friend goes, "I'm not biking on the highway. I'm on the side of the road." And the cop goes, "You weren't on the side of the road. I was just following you. You were biking in the middle of the highway." And my friend goes, "I can't be on the side of the road. Look at how much glass is over here." And when he told me, I laughed because it's so funny to set something up that you said and then create like the other guy's crazy when it was what you said. I can't be on, like as if the cop suggested at least bike on the side of the road. You're like, "I can't be over here. There's glass on the side of the road." And Kamala Harris / the news pulled this exact thing. Where Kamala Harris, it's on her, listen, I don't care. Yeah, go run on your ideas. I don't care about what your racial identity is. I don't think that somebody should be president just because they're black, just because they're Jewish, just because they're white, just because they're a lady. I don't think that there's somebody out there who's trans and Indian and a lady, but a man sometimes, and also has ADHD and anxiety. And oh my God, think about how empowering this would be to everybody if we could cross off all these boxes. An Indian, trans, lady, dude sometimes with anxiety and ADD. Every single minority could feel like they're included if we could put this person up. I'm not playing racial politics. You weren't playing racial politics. We don't care about this stuff. We're like, get out there, tell us what your ideas are, and if it's not for socialism, price controls, bringing more people into the country, having more wars, we might go, hey, I like these ideas. If you get up there as a black trans Indian lady and goes, I want to get out, I want to end the Fed, I want to get rid of these wars, I want to figure out how to reduce inflation, I want to make sure that you can keep more of your tax dollars, we would all be like, oh, all right. Who would have thought that the Indian, trans, half-dude, anxiety, ADD person was the candidate that I wanted to support? That's the way I view politics. That's the way you guys view politics, which is I don't really care what your identity is. Do you have views that represent what I think is important? But that's not the way the left operates. The left's up there and they go, it doesn't matter what this person's saying. It doesn't matter what their intelligence level is. We gotta think about how empowering. We need to start finding women. We need to start finding minorities. Let's not look at their track record, their academics, how qualified they are for the job. What we need to do is find people who cross off these boxes, which is not, and by the way, we don't even do that. Like, is basketball more important than president or CEO positions? When it comes to basketball, you just get to be the best player. There's no one going, hey, we need more whites in basketball. We need more, you know what's underrepresented in basketball? It's 5'6" Jewish people. Who cares if it's the best and most entertaining version of the sport? It's more important that we empower that 5'6" little young Jewish boys can feel like they could be basketball stars. And when it comes to something as stupid as entertainment, we realize we want to see the best people out there entertaining us. We wouldn't for 1 second say, hey, you know what's underrepresented here? It's Asian women. We need to have more Asian women in basketball. Nobody says that. But some reason when it comes to running corporations, running colleges, running sales departments, running the country, all of a sudden we're excited by we have to empower these minorities. We need to have old people with dementia running the country so that other old people who have dementia can feel like they should still be working their jobs as well. This does not come from us. It clearly comes from the left. And as it comes from the left, Kamala Harris, who is a Jamaican Indian, as that appears on her birth certificate, when she won the Senate, she's up there celebrating, hey, I'm the first Indian senator. She's on other television appearances going, hey, I'm the first Indian lady. And that's the card that she wants to play is let's celebrate the racial diversity of that an Indian lady was able to achieve this. And then all of a sudden she's running for president and she's talking like a black minister, like a female Martin Luther King, and she's playing the, hey, I'm a black lady card. And so they ask her about this at the interview. They asked her a couple tough questions of, hey, you know, you guys were busted in this lie, you're busted in this lie, do you want to address it? And they basically just said, nah, you know what, thank you for the opportunity to answer that question in the most favorable format and spin some sort of a lie, but I'd rather just not. And so she just didn't. They asked her, so what's the story? You're being criticized for the fact that you're claiming that you're a black person, but previously you didn't identify that way. And she just laughed and goes, I refuse to address that. Let's move on to the next question. And then the next day, I'm reading CNN, and they turn around and they go that she refuses to engage in Trump's identity politics. Is that what she's doing? Is she actually going, hey, let's have a conversation about the best ideas? Trump created identity politics. Kamala Harris was just up there being platformed for having the best ideas, for being the most competent person in the entire country. And she's not out there claiming, hey, you guys should support me because I'm a black lady. She's not playing that game in any capacity. And so when Donald Trump steps up and he criticizes her and says, hey, if you're going to identify as a minority for votes, aren't you identify as the wrong minority? That's playing racial politics, and Kamala Harris refuses to do so. The other one was Tim Walz. They asked him about his military record, and he just sidesteps in and goes, he had no answer. He had no answer. He wouldn't answer the question and say, I think it's wrong to disparage people or service. Yeah, well, what about stolen valor? What about claiming that you served in wars that you didn't serve in? Not going to get into that. All right, everybody, this episode is brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo, the entire place on the only place on the entire internet that you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. So if you're out there, you're still going to your local stores, you're overpaying for kratom, I implore you. The economy is getting bad. It's going to get worse. The prices are still going to go up. I don't know how the Kratom people don't have to deal with inflation. I don't know how that happens. I don't know why the Kratom markets haven't been hit by the Biden administration's inflation, but it hasn't. And so they're reliable. $60 can still get you an entire kilo of Kratom over at YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo. Next up, we've got Jack Smith, who is it is what he did. You know, he had an indictment. And he's like, here's 1,000 infractions that Donald Trump did. And then it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And then he turns around. He goes, all right, I can't bring the 1,000 infractions, but I can bring 987 of these infractions. I'll bring that as 987 infractions. And then now we'll go all the way up to guys, I'm done with this storyline. This one is boring. It's old news. It already got kicked down. I mean, this is the problem with government, is they've got endless resources to bring these lawsuits. And if you're Jack Smith, let's say you just get this wrong the entire time. You're a lawyer, so now you get to go enter private practice and go, look at how much of a pain in the ass I am. You give me enough money and I'll keep bringing bullshit to people. Let me tell you, if you're looking for a lawyer who can keep spinning some bullshit and clog down the other party with lawsuits that make no sense and won't stick, and you'll keep showing up with a big-ass smile on your face and bringing the lawsuit again, struck down by a court, I'll appeal it. Another judge told me I can't do that, I'll change the case. I mean, if anything, this is the greatest pitch for a lawyer ever. You know, they got all these law firms. Hey, here is Morgan & Morgan. We'll get your money. You get Jack Smith up there. Hey, do you need a really big pain in the ass who's completely comfortable lying through his teeth and being 100% wrong? Well, I'm here for you. I mean, firstly, on my end, just don't repeat the storylines. We went through the whole Jack Smith storyline, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They got rid of the thing, and now he just gets to amend his case from the 1,000 infractions to, oh, well, can we try it as 897? Oh, that didn't work. But what if we amend it to 895? That didn't work. All right, well, here, I've boiled this down to 250 infractions. Firstly, that's boring. And secondly, why does this get endlessly funded? There's zero penalty for being wrong. I don't know, if you're a government prosecutor, you bring a case and it turns out that it was entirely wrong, you should just be barred from being a lawyer. All right, next case. We only got a couple more left. The Telegram case is fascinating. And I've already spoken out against it. I've said, hey, listen, the government shouldn't be allowed to have roads because terrorists have driven on these roads. Drug dealers drive on these roads. Any technology that you make, the tools themselves are neutral. The only way that we can exist as humanity is if we put things out into the world, and if bad people choose to use them for bad purposes, it's going to happen. There's nothing, kitchen knives. Should we get rid of kitchen knives because every once in a while there's a stabbing? Should we get rid of cars because every once in a while a drug dealer drives in a car? Should government not be allowed to have, I think we should hold the government responsible for every single time a terrorist or drug dealer or anyone who commits a crime drives on a road. Every single time you make a telephone call and it's to engage in illegal activity, we better take down the telephone lines. I mean, what will our life look like if we don't have telephone lines? That's not important. We can't have them because unless we have them regulated and make sure that there's no... All right, we all understand that that cannot work. You make items, the items themselves are neutral, and people have free will in deciding how we use them. And if we start limiting everything from society on the basis of idiots, assholes, and complainers, then we end up with nothing. So the only way to exist is to go, hey, here's an item. You have free will. We hope that you use it for good. And if you choose to use this thing for bad, we will prosecute you. But we're not going to say that nobody can have this, because otherwise, how do we move forward as humanity? It doesn't even work for government. If you held government to the standard, we couldn't have roads because every once in a while a road is used by a terrorist. That's every single time anything happens in this country illegally, at some point somebody used cash. Should we not have cash anymore? How can we have a United States government currency? Look at what it's being used for. We clearly have to get rid of United States currency. All right. There is, however, and I don't have a solution to this, but there's something interesting about the Telegram stuff. You're going to have nuanced thought on this. I oppose the Ukraine-Russia war. I oppose the way that we're funding it. I think it's a big, tragic mistake. I think we're just escalating tensions with Russia for no reason. We could do a different thing, which is just get along with them, which everyone's able to do for oil profits. When it comes to the elites and their oil profits are able to get along with them, but for some reason, when it comes to, hey, we need to be able to threaten you with missiles on the border and a bunch of Ukrainians have to die and we have to keep them in the fights, they have to continue to die, that we can't get along on. All right. I don't like the Ukraine war. I don't like our involvement in the Ukraine war. And I also think the only way that we can exist as humanity is if people create technology and we have the freedom to use it without government involvement. All right? So I hope everyone's clear on where I stand on this one. There's something interesting, though, with Telegram that apparently, I don't even know if this is true, but they're claiming that it is the primary technology for communications being used by the Russians. So now if you're fighting another country, which I don't think we should be doing, but if you are, you're engaged in a war with another country and you have the ability to take away an asset that at what point does that almost just make sense? Like, in other words, if there was a steel factory in the United States during World War II that was selling steel to the Germans, I would go, all right, I guess it makes sense to keep them from selling to the Germans. So there's something odd about this particular case where I wish they were just more honest. They were like, but like, I think we'd be better off with government not regulating in any capacity. And I don't think that they are being honest in the way that they're trying to censor it, where they go, oh, well, there's child pornography on there, or these people are engaged in these illegal activities. I don't think that makes sense. But there is something odd about having a strategic technology that you're claiming is empowering an enemy country and then like just allowing or not trying to prevent their usage of that. I guess if a company is not willing to withdraw the usage from someone else. Robbie, are you being funded by Russia? No, I'm definitely not. All right, let's take a couple comments here. Pro-Civil War broadcasters are funded by Russia. Not sure what that does for me. I'm the Yellow Ranger. Hi. I'm Claire the White Ranger. Hi. All right. You know what? No comments. I gave the comments a chance, and John Castle came through with things that made no sense to me. All right. I believe... Yep, this is the last one for today. Which means before we cover the last one, sheathunderwear.com. I got my sheaths on right now. I got my red hiking shorts on. I got my classic red sheaths. There you go. Sheath Underwear. They're coming up on their 10-year anniversary. Robert's been in the game, been crafting, sitting in that lab, making sure that he's got the most comfortable underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. And he went through trials and tribulations to get this glorious underwear to you fine people. He had to serve in the Iraq war. He got fooled by that propaganda. He thought he was serving his country. And he was over there, and you know what he realized when he was chafing his nuts in the desert heat? One, he realized I don't like being out here and I don't like doing this stuff. And two, he was like, can I get something that doesn't make my all my stuff get all chafed up? And so he came back, and you can go down the archives. His first designs, they weren't roomy enough for penises of American men. He went out there and he bought it from a Chinese supplier, and he realized this isn't roomy enough. But after 10 years of sitting in a lab trying to craft and forge the greatest underwear ever seen by the hands of man, he's got into 10 years of sheath, and now you got silky smoothness, just like this, where if you want to take a nice leisurely stroll in Casper, Wyoming, with some random fan who you said, hey, can you pick me up from my hotel and bring me for a nice walk in the woods where, nothing weird happens in any capacity, you'd be able to do so. So everybody, go to sheathunderwear.com, actually now sheath.com, use promo code RYM, and you can get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. And now, to close out our show, how many scams do I have to put out into the world before some Bernie Madoff type character calls me up and goes, hey, you're hired? I was over here for months talking about higher carbon reducing trees and getting ahead of this electric vehicle green energy scam as they pretend like carbon credits is the new currency. And no one listened to me. Nobody called me up and said, hey, I'd like to figure out how to get this to market. I'd like to figure out how to create this IPO. I think you're onto something with this worthless technology that people might get excited about and think, hey, listen, sure, we haven't been profitable for 20 years, but think about the growth in this industry as more government regulation comes in. We don't even have the technology of trees that are higher carbon reducing, but look at all the excitement from these other people and the growth potential over here. And then you get the climbing, more money pours in, more money pours in. And anyways, I was just over here talking out of my ass about the type of money that's going to exist for carbon credits. And then lo and behold, in the Wall Street Journal, I read about some country that sinks $100 million into U.S. forests because they want to get ahead of offsetting their carbon credits. You see what's happening? There's no market at the moment for carbon credits, or maybe there is, but how much is it worth? How big is it? And so at the moment, they're buying up assets that are worthless. It's some tree in the woods. And then guess what? Then they're all of a sudden going to turn on the switch for the fact that you got to pay for carbon credits and go, oh, lucky me, I own all the trees in the woods. Like, we got to figure out what horseshit exists out there. You know, my grandfather once told me, I never read this book, but he told me about this interesting book about these aliens that come down to Earth. And they come down to Earth and they start buying cow turds. And they get really excited from cow turds. And they've got different formations that they find exciting about the cow turds. And there's certain colors that are worth more than other cow turds. And so all of a sudden, you get these people, these farmers, and they start setting up stock exchanges for the cow turds. And then all of a sudden they turn around, and you pay attention for like the first 20 seconds what people say, and then you start talking about it in a podcast, and then you're like, I don't remember what the other part was. But in some form and fashion, the aliens, once this market was made for the cow turds, they slowly started shorting basically all their cow turd positions, and then they sold all the cow turds back to the farmers at premiums and left with all the money. Well, that's what's going on here with trees. I mean, trees aren't cow turds, but they're just selecting one random thing that has no value at the moment. Then they're suddenly going to go, all right, we own all this shit, and now you're all got to buy carbon credits from us. And listen, it's all horseshit. But you know what we could do? Is we could Jew scam ourselves ahead of this market. We could sit down and we could think, hey, what kind of elite scam are these people running? And they think that we're suckers. They think we're not going to actually be, and we are. I'm just over here talking. I'm throwing out brilliant ideas to the fans who I hope have more Adderall, know how to set up IPOs, know how to bring companies to markets. Just cut me in. You don't even need to cut me up in the front. Just steal the idea and cut me a check down the road. But, you know, I was over here, just the things that fall out of my asshole of saying higher carbon reducing trees and the scam that's coming. And then I read in the newspaper that you've got foreign governments sinking $100 million into our farce. And then what? They get to claim how much carbon's being reduced. They get to sell the carbon back to them. They get to sell the carbon to us. All of a sudden, there's no trees that you can buy. You think, all right, well, listen, I'll go plant a tree. I'll plant a tree, and then I'll go look at all the carbon that the younger trees reduce more carbon than the bigger trees. But they're not going to let you do that. All right, guys, that is the episode. Thank you for hanging out. I will be opening for Dave Smith out in Casper, Wyoming this weekend. If you guys are out there, the Dave Smith shows have been, they might already be sold out, but those have been some packed houses, some big shows. And Porch Tour was so much fun this year. I extended it. I've got another 10 dates. Here, you know what? Why don't let's read off what the dates are. I mean, you could also go to porchtour.com for them. But we've got Byron, Michigan. That's been a classic out in that, by the way, Michigan's Bounty, which is a safe refuge for the end of the world. So if you guys want to come check out what's going on over at Michigan's Bounty, we're gonna be back in that we got to call it an episode. I'm stuttering like crazy. Syracuse, Utah. Utah was one of the best shows I did with Dave. Providence, Rhode Island. Been meaning to play there. That's actually at a bar. Fans got a bar. That's pretty cool. Back in Jacksonville, Miami. Never done Miami. Gonna do a one-nighter in Chicago. Back in Mesa, Arizona. That was one of the highlights of last year's tour. Then I'm filming out in Denver, Colorado. Please, make the trip to Denver, Colorado. We're doing 2 shows in my friend's garage. Going to try and get 40 to 50 people in for each show, do a taping, and then Sutton, Massachusetts, and then it's not on here, but also going to be back at the Shell. That's the show, porchstore.com. Looking forward to doing some more porches and hopefully lining up New Orleans. Later, everybody.